Hi all, it's James. I am super sorry for the delay. It's like, James, what's up, man? It's been 2 months, 3 months. What's going on? And you're right. Been busy with a short film project called Alman Allen. That's in the last stages of post. Started a new day job, and those are good excuses, but they're excuses, and I have to understand that. Hey, as I'm overloading myself. So one thing I want to mention in this opening remarks is that if you're an editor, sound editor with experience in podcasts, shoot us an email. We're at yinyoungpodcast@gmail.com. That's spelled YINYOUNG podcast@gmail.com. So you can help us with the back end, and we can get these podcasts out on a regular basis. And we are independently and self-funded, so don't expect big bucks, but we will compensate you. So that's the second thing I want to say. And the third thing is Jeff Mann. He is our guest for this episode. He is a filmmaker I met through mutual friends. We mentioned a little bit about that, and we really get into it about Asian male masculinity, filmmaking, dealing with loneliness, and why everyone may want to consider getting a therapist. Anyways, without further ado, the long-awaited Yin and Young podcast, episode 41. And welcome back to Yin and Young, the podcast. I'm here with filmmaker Jeff Mann. Woo!
Woo!
And this is
Thank you.
and as I was just saying to Dan, this is the 41st episode. 41. Yay! We actually have the episode number now. Jeff, you want to say hi so the viewers can hear your voice, or the listeners, I guess. Yeah.
Hello.
That's Jeff.
Very nice.
Yeah, and then the guy who just said very nice was Dan, and this is me, James. Cool. Fairly free form podcast. I mean, and then if there's anything you want edited out, or if there's anything that you feel you don't ever feel like you have to feel pressure to share anything that might endanger you, whatever. So just I think. For the most part, what I'm curious, I think what we started talking about doing a podcast because of that invisibility episode, right? Yeah.
I think it started with a conversation at a bar.
Yeah. We had a conversation at a bar. I had a conversation at a bar with Jeff and some mutual friends, and we were talking about dating, and then so we were talking about I guess interracial dating, and it was kind of happenstance because Dan, you sent me a message saying, "Hey James, you should check out this episode called Very Offensive Rom-Com," right? Or this NPR Invisibility, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll check it out." And then it kind of touched. I'm trying to remember the order actually. I think it was after I talked with Jeff about a similar subject. Then you sent me that. I'm like, oh, I think Jeff might appreciate or might be interested in this. So I sent it to him. He's like, oh yeah, we should talk about it, and kind of snowball into this. So I think my plan or that for today was I was thinking of basically covering some of Jeff's past work, which actually does touch a little bit about dating and loneliness. And also from there maybe segue into talking about dating or the episode in particular, and kind of branching off from there. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Yeah. Dan, any thoughts?
Yeah, well, we can probably talk about that one message we received about that someone took offense to.
Oh,
that's kind of related to this.
Did you actually read that? You saw it?
No, you sent it to me.
I sent you the Let me pull it
the
up
gist
here.
of it.
Did you guys get a bad comment about a podcast?
Yeah. Yeah.
We can cover that after we cover your background, but
Okay.
it's gonna come up. It's definitely gonna come up because it's kind of related to the invisibility of podcast as well.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Here.
I am glad that there is one married person. I didn't. 3 single guys talking on this subject is.
Well,
go.
I'm a voracious consumer of podcasts. I listen to everything in 2x.
Oh, okay.
Oh wow.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
Wait. So
If I
you're like. Oh wow. You're like AI then. You're like just downloading the stuff real quick. Yeah.
I mean, you get like you miss some details here and there, and then I'll like go back. But
Sure. I mean.
for the most part, you'll get almost everything you need from that podcast in 2x.
Yeah.
At least for me, it's something that my friend turned me on to, and then I consume a lot of stuff in 2x.
And you enjoy it that way?
I do, and it's gotten to the point where there are certain people I can't listen in 2x, and some people I can listen in 2x. Some people who are much better in 2x than they are in 1x. Now it sounds like they're stoned if I listen to real time.
Oh, interesting.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I think you just blew my mind because I listen to everything in 1x, but I might change that because I can get 2 times the information now.
There's so much content out there. There's no way that I can get through everything in 1x with 2 kids and a job.
Okay, I think. Thank you, Dan. I think you've kind of turned me on to this whole another way of consuming content. I'm gonna experiment with this. I personally like the experience of enjoying things, but like if it's information like a nonfiction book or something, I think 2x might be. I noticed this at work. I just started a job recently, and I have to get through certain content and make marks and stuff like that in the content. And I realized like, dude, I just got to do 2x or 3x because this is there's no way I can finish all these tasks in time. So maybe I can apply that to my life. Maybe, yeah. Cool. All right. Let's.
Sorry for that deviation.
No, I like. It's a good tangent. We'll call that the 2x corner or the 2x segment. How to consume content, or maybe like Dan's tips of the day, or maybe Dan's dad tips, I guess, because like.
No, Dan's anomaly.
So. I guess you guys were talking a little bit about this beforehand. So Jeff, you were from the DC area?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you grew up there, or?
Yeah, I grew up in Maryland, right outside of. That's like 20 minutes outside of DC. Yeah.
Cool. And you were born in that area too?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much.
Gaithersburg, Maryland.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what was kind of like your experience growing up in that neighborhood? Was it demographic wise, was it pretty diverse, or mostly white, or?
Yeah, it was pretty diverse.
Okay.
I think when I was like really young, it was mostly like African American and white, with some fair amount of Asians like sprinkled in.
Oh, Asian sprinkle. Okay.
And then I think as I started to get into middle school and high school, more and more like Hispanics started to like move into the area. I remember like when I was 16, I got a job at Chuck E. Cheese, and
Right.
most of my coworkers were like Hispanic kids.
Huh.
So.
And as far as your friends growing up, what kind of group would you say? Or were they like the skaters? Were they like were they the smart kids? Like, yeah, just trying to get a picture of like your
I don't know about you guys, but I like bounced around a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think like in middle school I hung out with like the heavy metal kids, which my parents and my grandmother didn't very much.
Were they white or heavy
yes,
metal?
they were all white.
Yeah, I'm assuming.
We would. I mean, they introduced me to like Nirvana and Pearl Jam, and after school, like we would go to the tennis court and like play hockey on the tennis court, blasting like Rage Against the Machine on like the boombox. So that was me in middle school. I was like going through like a rebellious phase during that time. And then in high school, I kind of stopped hanging out with them because they got me in trouble a lot, and I picked up a lot of bad habits from them. So in middle school, I started hanging out with like a couple of like skater kids, and then stopped hanging out with them around like junior year, and started hanging out with like a couple like neighborhood kids. But I think later in high school, I hung out with like a group of kids who are like my good friends today, and like there's like one Taiwanese kid, one Portuguese kid, one Iranian, and a couple white guys. So it's like a mixed bag of like people from the area.
Cool. Growing up, I mean, would you say you had a pretty happy childhood, or you have one sister, I guess? Yeah.
How'd you know that?
I did my research. Yeah, I did my research.
Stalked you on Facebook.
Yeah, I got one sister. I mean, yeah, it was pretty normal, happy childhood, I guess. I mean,
Three
as far
generation
as, like,
family, I guess, or three generation household.
Me and my sister were kind of raised by my grandparents. My mom and dad worked like pretty much morning to night growing up.
Oh, so you're kind of latchkey kid, I guess. Well, no, you had your grandparents, I guess, right? Yeah.
Yeah, my grandparents.
Yeah.
So yeah, I basically grew up spending most of my time with my grandma and my grandfather. And then I would see my dad at night. And then I think around age 12, I had to start working at the family restaurant.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes. I know it well.
Oh,
Did
wait.
you-
So, yeah, we should make this clear. Jeff is Asian American.
Yeah, Chinese.
Chinese American, and he is Cantonese, right? I mean, your family's from.
Yeah,
my
my parents grew up in Hong Kong. I guess both my mom and dad, their ancestry, or my grandparents, like, are from Shandong province.
Oh. Okay.
But I think like during whatever, like the Cultural Revolution, they made their way to Hong Kong, and that's where they, set up shop and had families and stuff like that.
Because Dan, he knows that family restaurant life.
Did you work at your family restaurant too?
Yeah, I peeled shrimp when I was 5. That was a hateful experience.
Because your family's Cantonese, or they speak Cantonese as well, right? Yeah.
My family?
Yeah.
Yeah, they speak Cantonese, but we're actually from the Yangzhou province,
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Yangzhou.
Yeah. So, what dialect does your family speak at home then? Your grandparents?
Shandong.
Shandong.
Yeah, it was kind of weird because my parents speak Cantonese, and my grandparents spoke Mandarin, and Shandongese or whatever.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but everybody communicated fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, everybody.
So, what would you say your first language was? I guess.
Oh yeah, I probably learned Cantonese first. Actually,
Okay.
that's interesting because like I remember when I went to kindergarten, like I was born in United States. I'm American born, and I remember going to kindergarten and they put me in ESOL, which is like English for students of other languages. And I remember sitting there like thinking as like a 5-year-old, like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, this is it. So
Like, do you think you deserved to be? Like, was your English level poor at that time, or?
I don't know if I had a good grasp of what my English level was like. I definitely felt I had good English skills, but the teachers thought otherwise, I guess.
Okay. That's interesting. That's a similar experience to me. Yeah, I in preschool, they caught me a little bit early, but in preschool I did not know what the hell anyone was saying. So my parents were like, "Okay, we're gonna speak English at home."
Yeah.
Which they say now is actually not really that good, because then the kid will just lose that language completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so did you retain your language, the Mandarin, I guess Cantonese? Yeah.
Yeah, my Mandarin is like okay. My Cantonese is a lot better.
Oh, cool.
I think growing up watching movies helped me. Like I watched a lot of like Hong Kong movies, and along with like a lot of like Hollywood stuff growing up. So
Cool.
yeah.
So did watching those films kind of get you interested in filmmaking? Because you actually studied journalism first, though, right?
Damn, where'd you get all this? Yeah.
Cyber stalker.
Yeah.
Everything's on the internet.
Yeah.
People,
Yeah, it's crazy.
be careful.
Yeah, I studied journalism. Actually, my family is a big like movie family. A lot of my uncles, like my I didn't realize this until like I talked to him like maybe like 12 years ago, but my uncle on my mom's side of the family like was a big movie buff. Like he came over one night with like all these like little like posters that he collected when he was like in Hong Kong of like films. He like gave me like a little like Rashomon like
Oh wow.
bill like that he's like saved from like Hong Kong when he like saw it in theaters and stuff like that. Like I never knew like I had a cinephile uncle, but then on my dad's side like everybody loved movies growing up. So naturally like I got it from them. I never thought I could have a career in it, but so I think I idolized Roger Ebert growing up. I think around high school I started reading his reviews, and like I started learning, actually maybe even before high school, like when I was like 12, I started reading Roger Ebert and started learning more about like films outside of like the Hollywood world, and it got me like curious about like what else is out there, and like the way that he wrote and stuff like that got me like it kind of like developed my love of film like even further. So the idea of going to journalism school was to become the next Roger Ebert. And I started reviewing movies for my school paper when I was like a junior. And it was fun at first, but I think by the end of it, like I hated it because one was I kind of like was worried about what kind of person I would turn into, like where my job every day was to criticize and look for like faults in things, you know. That was very concerning for me, and I just realized that like nobody cared what I had to say about movies. Like I could write like the most eloquent review about this like tiny film that like opened at the small art house theater, but I'm not going to change like everybody's mind from whatever they're going to go see that weekend.
Right.
So
I mean, Ebert did. I mean, rest in peace, Ebert. Like he was a champion of like, Asian American cinema as well. Like there's that famous video of him like standing up at the Sundance Film Festival and like defending Better Luck Tomorrow because some guy was saying, "Oh, this makes Asians look bad. Well, how can you do that?" And Ebert's like, "Whoa, would you be saying that shit if like the movie was white kids? Like,
right.
No, right?" So no, Ebert, he was a big champion of film and Asian American film as well. Yeah.
I mean, he was a champion of like people and like humanity. Right. It seemed like if you read his reviews, there's like life lessons in like, what he like wrote. It's I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, do you read Justin Chang's stuff? He's a pretty good reviewer too that I follow. Yeah.
I don't read as many reviews now.
Yeah, you're probably like jaded by it, I guess, or.
A little bit. I just like to go see things and like form my own opinions.
You ever read Jeffrey Gold stuff? Like he does the food reviews.
Jonathan Gold?
Oh, sorry, Jonathan Gold.
Yeah.
So like he's kind of like one of those reviewers where like he'll only like do good reviews. Like he so no, yeah. So I can see that, like how like if you're paid to actually criticize, that's gonna be tough. Yeah. But so where was the switch then? Was it college then, or like after finding out? Oh, I kind of hate how I'm becoming from this, or.
I think after I graduated, I thought I was just gonna be like a journalist and like do stories because I actually enjoyed that part of it, and I developed a love of writing in high school. So I thought I was just gonna be like a reporter or something like that. And I got a job at the Washington Post after I graduated, like as like a newsroom like aide. I didn't really like write or anything like that.
That's cool.
But I did like make a couple films in high school with like a camcorder that I edited on 2 VCRs.
What?
Like literally, like I made a film like sophomore year. That I edit. It's like an 8-minute film, but it took me like 2 days to edit. Like if you showed that kid like Final Cut today, like his mind would explode, like knowing
Yeah.
like the kind of work that I put, like literally I would like rewind tapes and like stop and like record, and it would like mess up, like I couldn't. But anyways,
Windows Movie Maker, would you ever use that, or
no,
that was high school, I think, or yeah.
this was like 2000. Like I didn't know what was available at that time. Like
okay.
this was like the only way I knew how to like do something.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I just did it. But after I graduated, I actually took a course at a community college, like a filmmaking course, and they gave you equipment. You made 2 little short films, and quickly saw that there was some value in that, and I enjoyed doing it. So I kept doing that. Eventually, my film professor hired me at his like new job at this like startup like cable network.
Oh, cool.
So I worked there for like a year, and then I got laid off. And then, but through that job, I met. Do you know Eric Byler? He directed like Charlotte Sometimes.
Oh, he directed Charlotte Sometimes.
Yeah.
with Jacqueline Kim. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I met him, and then I worked on a documentary with him for like 2 years. Him and Annabelle Park, and that was kind of like my film school because I didn't really get paid or anything doing that. So, and then I moved out here like a couple years later to pursue it even further.
How long have you been in LA?
Almost 9 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
You liking it?
Yeah, it was really depressing for that first year because I couldn't get a job or anything like that. But now that I have stuff going on, I don't think I'm a picky person. Like just give me something to do and a purpose, and I'm fine.
Was that? Yeah, Dan. Any follow-up questions?
I mean, since your family is like a bunch of cinephiles, or there are other cinephiles in your family, was the switch to filmmaking a rough transition as far as your family is concerned? Or did they care?
Or like support, you mean, or like?
Yeah, or I mean, most Chinese families or Asian families, when you tell them you're going to go into the arts, it's kind of a tough conversation to have, I think.
Yeah, I think for me, like it definitely was. I think for me, the thing is like everything that I've tried to do to like career paths that I've chosen to like please my dad and my mom, I've failed miserably. And like my first year of college, I tried to be like a computer science major because I thought that that's what they wanted me to do. And I literally got kicked out of school because my grades were so bad.
Oh, jeez.
And I had to come back as like a part-time student and like work my way back. And that, I think when that happened, they were like, okay, just like do what you can to get to graduate and stuff. But I was like, all right, let me.
Bachelor's.
Yeah. So I was like, well, let me do the writing thing. So I did that. And then, yeah, I mean, I kind of like gave you an abbreviated version, but like after I graduated, I tried out like different jobs and stuff like that just to like get a steady job. And I don't think I did very well because those jobs didn't last very long. So
I mean, it's probably not your fault. It's probably the job market.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like a tough time too. But like, I don't know. I don't think I was the best employee at some of those places. But yeah, it was around like 2009, 2010. I was still living at my parents' house, and they really wanted me to like do something with myself. And I had an opportunity to come out here, and I was just like, maybe I should do it. And they're like, all right, just, whatever you need to do, like go do it. If it doesn't work out like 2 years later, like you can always come back and try something else. So yeah. So yeah, I guess just to sum it up, yeah, it took some convincing, but like them watching me fail at things.
Did it take about? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
It sounded like, so was it like a year of unemployment, sort of, or like?
Yeah, when I first moved out here, the first job I got was working at Best Buy.
Okay.
That was the only thing I could get.
No shame. No shame. I worked at a retail store before. Yeah.
I mean, it's like what I had to do to survive, but it was I almost got fired from that probably.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the weird thing about working at Best Buy is they don't actually train you how to do the job. The thing that they train you on is how to sell their Geek Squad protection plans.
Oh gosh.
And like, I've never been good at that. Like, I'm not good with like sales or like making people buy stuff, especially like things that I don't believe in. Like I remember in high school, like after I quit Chuck E. Cheese to go work at the movie theater, and because I always wanted to work at the movie theater, and like
that sounds romantic.
It was, but like it was miserable because like when you work at a big theater chain, like I think and you work at the concessions, like they have like a greeting that you want, like, hi, welcome to so and so, would you like to try this and this
blah,
today?
blah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I saw that and I was like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not, fuck that. And I think like a lot of those like mystery shoppers like reported me enough times, so they like kicked me off concession stands, and they had like a ice cream stand like outside of the theater, and every time I came to work, they put me there. And that was bad too, because all I did was just take the little spoons and like sample ice cream all day. So
I would probably do that too. Shit.
Yeah.
So that was Santa Claus kind of loosely based on that transition then? Because watching the film, so we'll have this in the show notes, but to Jeff Savimio. But Santa Claus, just briefly for our listeners, is a short film about 15 minutes long about one neighbor. She's from China. She invites her other neighbor who lives by himself over, and they have a conversation that eventually leads to kind of like an emotional scene. Was Santa Claus kind of loosely based on that transition from the East Coast to the West Coast, or something else?
Kind of. I hear a doggy, by the way.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's cool.
Good ear. Yeah, it's Harper, Dan's dog. Yeah.
I actually made a earlier short film. It was like probably my first like narrative that I did when I moved out here, called Midday Crisis, and that short film it's a short film about a guy calling a suicide hotline.
Yeah.
And that was based off of something that really happened to me when I first moved out here, like that first year that I was out here. Like that was like, yeah. So I would say that one more closely, like is a reflection of that time.
Was that you? Was that you on the call? Were you calling? Is that character representative of you, I guess? If I may ask?
Yes. So I guess I made that because there was a point one time when I was like living out here and I was like so depressed. Also, like hopefully she doesn't listen to this, but like before I moved out here, my girlfriend broke up with me. So I came out here like in a like hopeful, but also like in a very fragile state.
That's tough, man.
Yeah. So I guess I did a year of like not doing, like struggling to get my footing. And I just remember one day, like it was a beautiful Saturday afternoon, and I was just driving around like Pasadena and like seeing everybody out, and everybody is like so happy, and I'm living with my cousin and her boyfriend in this like tiny house with no air conditioning, and I'm like sweating when I sleep at night and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And working at Best Buy, where I'm getting yelled at every day for not selling protection plans. And I just remember like just like thinking while I'm like driving around like this is like, is this like my life? Like this, like if I disappeared right now, like nobody would give a shit. So, and then like I remember like catching myself like thinking about that. I'm like, you know what, like that's kind of disturbing, man. You should do something about it. So I went home, Googled like suicide hotline, and called, and had this really awkward conversation. And I think maybe like 2 or 3 years later, I was like reflecting on that time by myself, and I thought about that call that I made, and I think my idea for making it as a film is because I was thinking about it and it started making me laugh. because of some of the things I said and stuff like that, because of how like insecure I was to like do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's what prompted me to do that. But I guess in relation to Santa Claus, I do like, I think like, yeah, loneliness and sadness and like stuff that we like everyday life stuff is a lot of the things that I like to explore in my work.
One thing I got from like Midday Crisis was there was one line where the guy says, well, black people don't go to therapy, you know?
Yeah, that was a pure improv line by the actor Mandel Butler.
That was dope, yeah.
Yeah.
Because like you can replace that with another minority, like, oh, you know, Asians, we don't go to therapy, you know. And I was like, oh fuck, I can totally relate. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, well, for that movie, like I had like really long conversations with him about like the feelings and like what the character is going through and stuff like that, and just like getting his mindset. And if like we just talked about the times in our life when we were both, you know, down on like that. And then the woman on the phone, Robin, she's actually a friend of mine. She's not an actor. She's actually a psychiatrist.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So I actually just put them on the phone together and just had them like go and have like a real conversation. And she had like some of that training. So I just told her like, just react to what he's saying based off of like what you would say to that person in real life. So yeah. So when she told him to go to therapy, like that was totally something that came out of him.
I mean, no lie, I've called the line before, but I think I've called the line, I feel bad saying this, but I think I called the line out of curiosity more than like, did I really need it? I think I was down at the time. I was lonely at the time. I think I was making a long drive. It might have been like one of those drives from the Bay Area to here or some other long drive. And I remember calling and reception was kind of bad. And I just felt a little bit awkward about calling.
No, that was my experience.
Yeah. Because I felt like, maybe I'm taking away this call from someone who really needs it, or
that is exactly what happened to me. Like I said that to the operator. I was like, you know, like, is there more important calls that you should be on right now? Like, is this? I think that's part of like what made me laugh, that I actually like did that while I was on the phone. But yeah, it was kind of weird. Like it was more of like I don't like, in like the stigma of those hotlines is that like you should call when like you're holding a knife to your wrist and stuff like that. But like really what I did at that time was like did like a preemptive like call before it got worse like that, which I'm glad I did that. But you know,
so it helps.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it always helps to like talk about things, you know.
Yeah. So after that one, I'm trying to look at, you see, you did Midday Crisis. What was the next one after that you worked on?
You know what? I don't.
Jenny Wong.
I've done a bunch of shorts.
Yeah.
I guess like my filmmaking philosophy has been to just like keep cranking stuff out. Like I think I made a bunch of things like that probably isn't on my IMDb for good reason during that time too. But yeah, I think I did a couple of documentaries about interesting people. One of them was my grandmother, and then I did Night Out with my roommate Shannon Sarakaku, because we both wanted to make something, and then that led to Santa Claus.
Okay. One thing I want to touch on is Family Day, about the documentary that you did on your grandma who has Alzheimer's. If I may ask, is she still with us, or?
Yeah, she was. I kind of made that because I didn't think she was going to be around for much longer, but that was maybe like 4 years ago. So yeah, she's still alive and living in that home.
Because what I connect with, because I was raised by my grandparents as well, from like 0 to 10, because my parents were working full time. And then towards the end of my grandma's life, she started developing dementia, or she would think, like when I went to visit, but she lived in Taiwan, so there'd be like years where we wouldn't see each other. And then when I visit her, the last time I visited her, she thought like, you know, oh, are you the doctor? Like to see me? And that, I think that was actually for me probably even a little bit more sadder I'm sorry to say this, but even sadder than when she passed,
Right.
because it felt like that person is gone. You know, that person that raised me.
Right.
And so watching that, that film. But one thing that I also connected was that you can still sense that love, right, between. You know, if you're looking at these characters like they're still, you can sense the love between them. And I still got that from my grandma. Like one time I was just taking a nap near her, and she like put the blanket on me, you know,
Yeah.
even though I'm not sure if she even knows who I am really, you
Yeah.
know, but anyways, can you
Sure
talk
she did.
about like the filming, like what led to that project and the filming of it? Yeah.
So I guess what started that was, well,
That's fine.
what really started that was my boss like put me through a filmmaking boot camp.
Can you
Which
say
is
who your boss is or no?
Yeah, his name is Jay Duplass.
Yo, shout out to the Duplass brothers. Yo.
We had just finished season 2 of Togetherness, and we were driving home from set like after like the last day of shooting, and he was like, you know, I know you haven't been able to like make stuff this past year because we've been so busy with the show, but now that it's over, like, do you want to do like, I will, like, if you want to like make a bunch of things, like I'll like help you if you want to do this like boot camp thing that I've done with other people.
Wow.
And he was like, it's basically, I'll give you $100 every month, that's your budget, go make something and just give it to me at the end of the month.
$100.
$100, that's it. So I ended up making 4 films.
Wow.
And the last one was A Family Day, and that one I just I've always been curious about my grandmother. She's not my biological grandmother, but so my grandfather had 2 wives, but I think she was like his favorite. He was closer with her, and he was the one that he brought to United States when he came here to raise me and my sister. And so I've always been very close to her, and like I think my sister will agree that I'm her favorite. I don't know why, but it's kind of weird. Like, I don't know about with you guys, but I've never really known her background. I just know like we're not related, and my whole life I've always wondered like where she came from, who she is. Like, I've never known of her like having her own family, relatives and stuff like that. And so there was a long time when I started making films where I wanted to sit down with her and just like get her story like on film. And I just, when she got dementia, like I realized it was too late to do that. And A Family Day was kind of just a compromise to not being able to do that. Just like, it's my way of like a tribute to her. And it's like the best I could do without, because I can't sit down with her and like have a conversation with her now.
It's kind of bittersweet because it's like that moment has passed. I mean, you could probably piece together her history from other people, but to get it directly from her, that moment has passed.
Yeah, I think at some point I'm definitely gonna try to sit down with my dad and get her full history. But that's kind of where that came from. It was that boot camp exercise really just taught me to just, once you get that slight bit of inspiration, to just go run with it and see what happens. And so for that one, I was watching some documentaries at that time, and just literally it just sparked from my curiosity about her, what her day is like at the home that she lives in now. Yeah. And just, so me and my friend just grabbed a camera and I told him, let's hang out there for a day. Don't let her see us, and just film her and what she does. And then towards the end, like we'll start like talking to her and stuff like that. But yeah, I just want to see what that looks like. And then I wasn't sure like what kind of film like it would produce, but yeah.
I thought I was curious. Like once she saw your picture on the phone, she kissed it like right away. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. Well, so I guess she didn't forget you at all. I mean,
Yeah, like I said, I was her favorite.
Dan, like, did you have a similar relationship with your grandparents or not really?
I don't think it was. There's obviously the language barrier between me and my grandparents, but I mean, I did live with my paternal grandmother for a year in first grade while my parents were figuring out their marriage, but I don't think it was quite the same.
Because you were like a guest, I guess, or
Well, I mean, we were close in that we weren't. It was more than just like guest and or host, but I think the language barrier was like a big thing because I had switched. My whole language went from Chinese to Japanese Chinese, and it just became all English after I got to school. So in sixth grade, I was like more thinking about English.
right?
You speak Japanese?
Yeah,
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, his mom
grew up in Japan.
grew up in
Oh, okay.
So she's what's that Japanese? Chinese Japanese, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So let me see. Then the other three films, I guess, were what? Was it the one you made with your roommate or?
Yeah, I guess according to IMDb, the ones that I guess Jeannie Wang,
Yeah.
Night Out, Santa Claus, and
Particular time.
that particular time, that was like the first thing I made when I moved out here.
So one thing I'm curious about is you going back and forth with documentary and narrative.
Right.
Yeah. So is there a preferred medium for you, or it doesn't matter?
I think right now I'm focusing on narratives because I don't want to be broke for the rest of my life.
Whoa, ouch. Shout out to the documentary filmmakers. We
No.
love you. But you know what we're talking about. I produced a documentary before.
Yeah. I mean, I love documentaries are some of my favorite movies. Like and I think even like narrative filmmakers, they should make a documentary at least once just to learn that way. And my early training was actually in documentaries, like nonfiction work. So I have a strong affinity for documentaries, but yeah, right now I'm more focused on like narrative work.
Cool.
But like even in my narrative work, I try to, create a sense of like realism, as much as possible.
So let's talk a little bit about. I guess your last one was Santa Claus, I guess, right? Your last name.
Yeah, that was the last one.
And so you've made these other films so far through this boot camp with Mr. Duplass, Jay, and so what culminates? Because I would say it's probably your most successful one. I guess it has the most plays on the Vimeo.
Yes.
And it's been to festivals.
Yeah.
So I guess it maybe touches a little bit on some of your earlier themes like Midday Crisis.
Right.
So what culminated to this one, and also what made you want to get in front of the camera, or you had to, I guess you had to, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I guess like for Santa Claus, that one was interesting. It was I think I made Night Out, and like a year had gone by. Like I try to make 2 or 3 things a year. But this was the first time like I went on like a long period where I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And I was getting really like frustrated and annoyed with myself that I wasn't actively doing something. It came about because I have a friend, Yosalu Chen, who plays the woman in Santa Claus. I knew I had her, and she's always expressed to me that she wanted to do some acting stuff. So I've kind of always like thought about, what can I put her in? What kind of character can I draw up for her? But usually when I write for people, it's usually pretty close to who they are as a person. So one day I was just thinking, I was like, she's this like very energetic, fun, like positive person to be around. like, let's just put her with someone who's going to destroy that. And then I was like, well, who's going to do that? And I was just thinking about like me at that current state and how I was like so like depressed and feeling like antisocial and out of shape and all that stuff.
Oh, because you were like inactive for a year?
Yeah, because I was inactive. So I was like, you know, that's me right now. Like I don't want to be around people. I don't want to, you know, talk to anybody right now. And if she came to me trying to like cheer me up, I'd probably be like, get away from me.
Right.
You know? And then the whole notion, like having been in Los Angeles for, I guess like 7 years at the time, I'd spent a lot of Christmases here by myself. And I mean, it's a lonely city in general. And like I constantly feel lonely in my life. So I kind of wanted to explore this notion of loneliness, and maybe that this person who, you know, is so full of life, but deep down inside, you know, she's lonely as well, but dealing with it in a different way. And actually, I don't know if you watched the Yin Young documentary. That's the reason why I did that. One, it was part of the boot camp, but like I know Jeannie, and I was having dinner with her one night. If you know her socially, she's like I don't know how old she is, but she's, you know, an elderly woman. She makes documentaries. She walks like marathons. She goes dancing.
She wants to do everything.
She wants to do everything. But like, I was like talking to her one night, and she was just talking about her being lonely. And I was like, wait, what? Like, you're the least like lonely person that you're the last person that would expect that would like experience loneliness. And that's the reason why I made that, because just to explore this like different side of her that I never thought existed. So yeah, I guess when I made Santa Claus, it's about these two characters who are kind of dealing with the same thing, but they come to a head because of, you know, different. It's basically it's like you create a situation where ideally people would get along and everything would go great, but you know, life doesn't work like that sometimes.
Because it seems like the underlying issue or the underlying humanity of these people is the same, but the energies, the way that they the defense mechanisms, I guess, or the way they project themselves are completely different energies, and they just collide. Yeah.
And actually, like through making Santa Claus too, like I actually found myself like identifying with her too. Like I'm introverted and pretty quiet most of the time, but like there are times when I see other people in distress, and I, you know, try to inquire about what's going on, and you know, I could probably be like overbearing myself too, you know. So I know, so I kind of know like where that comes from.
Have you seen a therapist?
Yeah, I go once every other week.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I have a friend, he does it, he calls his therapist a shrink. I was like, why you call him a shrink? He's like, why? Get rid of the stigma. It's okay. I see a shrink.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, all right. I don't have enough, I don't know if I have enough income yet or savings but I think eventually I'll sign up for one. Dan, you see a therapist?
Yeah, I have, actually.
Yeah.
I have. I was, it's something I did for a while, and then I just can't afford going forever because it gets expensive.
It gets expensive,
my previous insurance was much better about it. The new insurance is not as good.
Oh, so you could actually, do you get, like, insurance can cover therapy sometimes? Or?
Yeah.
Oh shit, I need to look into that.
Yeah.
I just got, I've been on Medi-Cal for so long, which does not cover shit, you know, or I'm not sure if but I just got new insurance, so maybe I'm gonna look into that.
Yeah, I have my insurance, and it doesn't cover it, but I have like a pretty low like copay.
Oh, great.
We're getting into medical insurance.
No, hey, man, you know, with the Democratic primary coming up, I mean, you know.
I will say this. I think I could be wrong about this. I mean, I shouldn't say every, but like if you're a filmmaker, like going to therapy helps so much.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, I mean that said, it's not a cure-all. Obviously, you
No.
know, it's not a cure-all, but it is one of. It's like part of a program that you have to do for yourself, right? Yeah, yeah.
Totally. I mean, I still have lots of problems, but I mean, it's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like you walk around, you know, in this world. If you're lucky enough to have like someone you love by your side who you can like talk to, honestly about this stuff, like that might work. But like if you're like me, constantly like going about this world, like navigating it like by yourself, and like you and hopefully people aren't like an overthinker like I am, but just going to a therapist, like it's almost like you're just like letting all these things out. You're like talking about it. Like you don't have to like come to any like big like epiphanies or anything like that, but it's literally just like letting off steam and like letting these like processing these things that are going through your brain. It goes a long way to like helping yourself like find a peace of mind. And a lot of things I talk about in therapy is stuff I use as source material for content.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the danger is you don't want to invent problems for yourself to make content. I guess, yeah.
No, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
There's enough problems already. Yeah, yeah.
For sure. I would never think to create more problems.
Yeah, or drama. I know one thing that I would say one of my biggest issues now is so I worry about, you know, filmmaking or getting a certain project done. That's that aspect, but I think now the underlying like maybe suffering that I have in life right now is probably loneliness, and because it's been about was it 7 years since my last relationship, serious relationship. I've dated here and there, but and I would, you know, if I have a dream sometimes about my ex, I would hate myself for it. It was like, dude, James, that's 7 fucking years ago. Get over it. Or like, but like it's my subconscious. Like it's, I mean, I didn't want to dream about her, you know, like, so sorry, what were you gonna say? Yeah.
I was listening to you.
Okay, yeah. So as you were leaning, so I think, yeah, I wonder about that, because something that Dan and I've always talked about was like being okay being alone. Like that's one of the first steps, is like loving yourself, giving love to yourself, and also enjoying that time alone with yourself, because you know, as Dan, I don't want to speak for you, but like as you can attest, like enjoying your own personal free time becomes very, very scarce as you know, if you choose to be a father or have a family life. Would you agree, Dan?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, alone time becomes a treasured item.
Right. Now, I guess for me now, at my stage of my life, I don't know. It seems that I miss having, because I know what it was like to be in a relationship, and I know when I was in the relationship that it's like I could never be happy in the present, right? And that's tough, because that's something I need to deal with. Because when I was in the relationship, I'd be like, dang, I want some more of my own free time, right?
Yeah.
And then when I was outside of a relationship all these years, and I'm like, damn, it'd be really nice to have a, you know, girl or someone to talk to. But yeah, any thoughts on that?
No, I think I completely relate to that. I mean, I think there were times like here and there where I've gone on like dates and stuff like that, and I just remember like going on dates, and in the back of my mind is telling myself like, what are you doing? Like, you should be working right now. You should be writing right now. And I don't know, it's messed up. Like I feel like I came out here to pursue this career, right? And I'm not saying like a relationship's gonna ruin it, but like I really have to. I feel like as a person, like I have to achieve this before I can like make someone else happy sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
it's
what? But where is that? How
Dan, as a married person, is what I'm saying crazy?
Yeah, it's not crazy. It's not crazy. But I mean, Yeah, you gotta hustle as much as you can while you can.
Yeah.
Because once you get married, and especially once you have kids, the time to hustle, um, well, depending on what kind of father you want to be, right? If you want to be an absentee father, or like a very negligent in your relationship, then yeah, you'll have plenty of time whenever. But definitely, you want to do it while you can.
But it seems like your wife is able to balance it somewhat.
Yeah, she's hustling quite a bit.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm guessing it's tough though. It's not easy.
Well, huh?
I know you don't want to
Again,
get too much into details, but yeah, yeah.
I mean, for her, it's tough because that means it's time away from the family. Like if I got one of those traditional jobs where I have to travel all the time, well, not a traditional job, but if I get a job, a true sales job where I go and travel all the time, which is something I could possibly do, that means I miss out on so many things of my kids.
Mm.
And my wife, she's doing the best she can to balance it, but something has to give a little bit. She doesn't go to all the soccer games, which might be a blessing in disguise, but at the same time, she doesn't get to see them play.
That's tough.
Yeah, it was kind of. I was actually on a Vegas trip with my high school friends a couple months ago, and I remember like before we went, it was just like, yeah, we're gonna have a great time. We're gonna gamble and get drunk and stuff like that. And I remember when we got there, and by the end of the trip, the conclusion I drew was we are all really old. Like I think so. There was five of us. Me and another guy are the only two single ones. Everyone else has kids and are married.
Yeah.
And I just remember like the two that I was shared a room with. Like one of them was just like, oh man, like what am I doing here? Like I left my family like for the weekend. Like my wife is taking it, like I miss them and stuff like that. And then the other one like was like FaceTiming with his family like frequently and stuff like that. And
Can I ask, you're in your 30s?
I am 37.
Think about it.
So, yeah.
Do you get pressure from your parents or your grandparent?
No, because I think they know. I think they know what the deal is. And plus, my sister got married last year, so that bought me some time.
She older or younger than you?
She's younger by 1 year.
Okay.
So, but I think, I think they know it's not easy for me, I guess. I mean, I'm not doing terrible, but like right now, I don't think, yeah.
So I kind of want to segue. Dan, did you have anything else on this topic? I kind of want to segue from that to, dating in general, like kind of about the Invisibility podcast, unless you have anything else to add.
No? Let's move to the Invisibility podcast.
Yeah, so you did mention like your sister getting married. Like, it's interesting because I wonder if it's easier for Asian American females in the dating scene than Asian men.
Actually, Dan, is your wife, if I may ask, is she Asian or?
Yeah, she's half Chinese, half Filipino.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Invisibility podcast. Have you guys both listened to it?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually a huge Invisibility fan.
Were you a fan of that episode though?
Yeah, I like all. Did you have issues with that episode?
I want to hear your opinion first.
Okay. Well, okay. This is. I mean, it's not just that episode, but like this is something that I've been processing for a long time. I'll say this: I have like in my family, in my generation, like my cousins, my sister. I think like 5 or 6 of them are married. The females in my family, and one out of all of them is married to an Asian man.
Okay.
So, and I remember growing up, like me and my sister are really close, so we talk about like dating and stuff a lot. And my sister has never had the desire to date an Asian person. I think she's only talked about one Asian person being hot her whole life, and that was Takeshi Kanishiro.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, the actor from like
From
Chungking
Taiwan.
Express and
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that.
Wait,
She-
is that the guy from House of Flying Daggers?
Yeah,
Yeah.
She,
Oh, he's a good-looking guy.
He's good looking.
yeah,
dude,
he's very good. So you have to. So basically, you have to be a very good looking man to be passable for my sister.
Just to reach passable.
But yeah, all my. So I guess for me personally, like you see that, like it's like it's immediate, like even in your own family. But I think what I've come to is this, like, you know, we talked a lot about like loneliness and stuff out here, and you know, and Los Angeles is a really lonely city, and I feel like it's gotten worse with like Instagram and like Facebook and stuff like that. I think those contribute to our feelings of loneliness. And when you're out and about by yourself and you do see, you know, I don't think I'm exaggerating. Like when you go out on the streets, you see a lot of white male, Asian female, like couples running around out there.
Out in the field. Yeah.
Is that?
No,
Or
I
yeah,
got you, I got
when
you.
you're out at the Grove or whatever.
Santa Monica,
Yeah,
you see a lot.
promenades. Like I'm not crazy for saying that, right?
No, you are not. I noticed it too, and I even see that in the Bay Area too.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think in one podcast they talked about like the frustrations, and I forgot what term did they use, like a term to describe some of these men who write like blogs and stuff like that. I don't know. Is there
About which one? Like the angry men?
the angry men? Yeah.
Yeah, there's Asian male activists. You know,
Right.
that's one term. Or there's like incels, like involuntary celibates.
Right.
You know.
I think for me, like I get where that frustration is coming from, like when you're out and about and you're seeing like happy couples and stuff like that. But I think I always like stop and like check myself and say like, you know, is this is this the truth of the situation, or is there something else? Like what is, like, from, I guess essentially it feels like a momentary, like spur of the moment, like feeling that you get of like, that's just like accentuating your like feelings of loneliness, that you become like frustrated.
Yeah.
I think the truth of the matter is it a, I don't say handicap, but is it like a disadvantage to be Asian male, like dating? It probably is. I don't know where that comes from. Like people say,
Statistically, it is. I mean,
Yeah.
Based on I forget what it might have been.
Match.com.
OkCupid, Match.com.
Right.
Yeah, they did a survey, and as far as rankings goes, you know, white men on top. I think the next was either black or Hispanic. I forget. But yeah, Asian men were considered least desirable in the online dating surveys.
Right.
And then black women, unfortunately, were also labeled as least desirable in the female section.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess from that, you know, the takeaway is like there's probably is like a reality to the desirability of Asian men. I don't know where that comes from. Maybe it's people say like portrayal in media or whatever, but like that's kind of like the hand that we're dealt.
Yeah.
What's not, for me, like what's not productive is to blame the women for this. Like it's essentially comes down to preference and taste. If they prefer white guys or whatever, you know, that's, I've basically come, like, we as men have no ownership over any woman walking around. She's basically, you know, is free to choose whoever she wants to be with. And that's their preference. And I think we'd be lying if the three of us sat here and said that we don't have preferences ourselves, you know? So it's not like, so.
I like females with vaginas.
So, I mean, I think for me, the encouraging part of that podcast was hearing that one woman who tried to make a conscious effort to broaden her horizons. Like,
She wants to fuck her way out of racism. Yeah.
right. like one of my big concerns like with the world in general is like a lack of like self-awareness, and to hear that people are like thinking like about these things, like I don't know, for me that was like encouraging. Like yeah, like but I've had the thing, like the reality is I've had 2 girlfriends. I've been on dates, so it's not like, so my, like I can still get dates, you know what I mean? It's not like, maybe my pool is not as wide as a tall, skinny white guy, but I'm still able to, you know, get people who are interested in me, and I should just be appreciative of that. And if there's someone that I'm interested in, I probably have to work harder maybe to be impressive for them, because I'm not a tall, thin white guy maybe, but I don't know. That's just what I have to deal with.
Have you ever lived in Asia before, or have you dated in Asia before?
It's funny you bring it. So I did, my first girlfriend, I was on a study abroad trip for school.
Was it the Love Boat? No.
No, it was actually, so
shout out to Valerie So.
The family restaurant hindered my ability to do any sort of social interactions in high school, because I was there. I don't know. I worked every weekend at the family restaurant.
Oh, I see.
I never like went to parties or anything like that. There was one like Korean girl who used to, she listens to this. Anyways, there was
shout out to Korean girls.
Yeah, there was this one girl that I actually grew up going to school with, who I had a massive crush on. She would actually come eat at my restaurant, and I would give her free food all the time.
What? Your parents are very mad listening to this.
Yeah, but
is she Korean American or Korean? Or...
Korean American.
Okay.
But what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So I actually never had my first girlfriend until I was 21, and I was on a study abroad trip to China. And I didn't meet her in China. Well, I guess I did, but she was actually one of the girls like in our group. Like she wasn't a girl that who lived in China. So I started dating like one of the girls in the group, and we came back and had a relationship for a year and a half or so. Yeah.
Because I do notice, I've lived in Taiwan, and I don't know, there's a kind of a shift, a little bit of a shift, definitely, because it's a different racial, socio-economic, society.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh wow, so this is how white guys feel in America. Like, if you're like a decently attractive Asian male in Asia, like and if you can somewhat speak the language, like I was living in Taiwan, my family's from Taiwan. I thought I could, and also some girls, they have like, oh, you're ABC, like some girls like that, and then that there might be borderline fetish sometimes there, but which I kind of don't like, but I was like, oh wow, it's interesting. Dan, I want to get your thoughts real quick on the episode.
Well, I thought
what'd you think?
The most important, or not most
We'll have that in the
but-
show notes below, by the way. Yeah.
What's that?
Oh,
Hello?
I was just saying to the listeners, we'll have we'll have in the show notes a link to that podcast. But yeah, sorry, go ahead, Dan.
The one thing that the biggest thing I got from that episode was that initial attraction was based upon what initially got you excited, or the type of person or the race of the person that first got you sexually aware or something like that.
Right.
So
right.
I thought that was the most important, or that was like the biggest thing for me. Those like preferences is basically based upon your environment and where you were at that point of time in your life when you became more sexually aware, or like interested in the opposite sex, I guess. That's what I got from it.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting. I don't know how it fit. It didn't really fit well. I think as if you look at the episode as a whole, as like a narrative structure, I don't know. It seemed a little bit like kind of put in there, because I don't see how that related to Elle's she's the one that wants to fuck her way out of racism. I guess maybe because her first relationship was with a white guy. I guess maybe that's, I don't know.
Yeah, I think, well, real quick to add to like Dan's point too, I think I remember like early on when I was really young being attracted mostly to like, aside from that Korean girl,
Yeah.
attracted mostly to white girls. And I think a lot of that was a sense of shame of like my own culture. Like I remember going to school and just wanting to fit in, and like anything I could do to like not stand out was like my ideal way to like go through like my daily life at school and stuff like that,
Question for you.
Like
yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say real quick, like a story. Like my dad, I remember he went on a business trip to like Japan one time, and like one of the things he brought me home this like backpack from Japan with like anime characters on it.
Dope.
And it was kind of a cool backpack, but I remember taking it to school the next day, like wearing it, and I got made fun of like crazy. Like I never wore that backpack again, and it just anything like I didn't want any attention brought to me, like whatsoever.
And guess what? Those fucking white kids wear that backpack now and get fucking laid.
Yeah, exactly.
What the fuck? What the fuck? And
it's just a different era.
Well, it's kind of like crazy. It's like, oh, you eat kimchi? Ugh, that's gross. And now it's like fucking, oh, hey, these fucking white hipster guys like, oh, I'm making hipster. This is how you. There's like white people telling me how to eat kimchi now. Like, what the fuck? Like, how did things become like this? You're telling me how to eat pho? Fuck you. And because like these are the foods that we were made fun of growing up, and then all of a sudden it's now mainstream, and now we're supposed to be like, oh, well, thank you for like appreciating our culture. Fuck you. Yeah, seriously. Anyways, sorry, I got.
But I mean,
really lit a match there.
Yeah.
The thing is, you're thinking about your life right now. Well, once you have kids, you're gonna appreciate that it's actually gonna be better for them.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
For sure. That's a great point, actually.
It's better. I guess what my problem is like the actual infrastructure of why that is. It's kind of like, oh, basically it's better for the kids because white people are more accepting, but they were not accepting when we were kids. And so what does that mean? That means that are we constantly always trying to seek white approval, or are or is,
I don't know. I think once you have kids, it's going to be like a different perspective. Like I personally see my kids; they're both very, very confident kids.
Oh, great!
And versus like the way I grew up, I was always self-conscious about how I looked, how I dressed, making sure I fit in with everybody, and just kind of like not stick out. I didn't want to be that nail that stuck out and had to be hammered back into place.
Oh, yeah.
But my kids don't care. My kids do not care. I have 2 boys, and they show up to school with nail polish.
Great.
And my older son got made fun of. Like all the boys and all the girls, like, that's for girls, that's for girls. He goes, it doesn't matter. It's for boys and girls. And he didn't care. And he still does it.
That's so awesome.
Your son is more confident than even me right now.
Ouch, does it?
Well, it's just a matter. I don't know about your backgrounds as far as like, the actual upbringing part. How like Chinese people have this thing about it's never good enough, right? So I never felt good enough. My parents, I remember they were doing this, blah, blah, blah. And then I might get like straight B's for whatever reason. They go, why didn't you get A's? This is the tiger mom thing, right? It's a very Chinese thing. They kind of make you feel bad for doing pretty good.
Yeah. I remember, I did like a karate competition, and my dad's like, James, you look kind of sloppy out there. I'm like, dude, I'm like fucking sweating my ass off, and like, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of thing people do. Chinese people do.
Sorry, you were gonna say something.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But one thing I was gonna ask was like, did you speak Cantonese in public with your parents in Maryland or DC or?
My parents speak pretty good English, so I think I spoke more English. I definitely avoided speaking any foreign language in front of like kids, you know, like if my parents came to school, which they rarely did, but like if they did, like you couldn't twist my arm hard enough to get me to speak Cantonese to anybody.
Man.
I've said this to my therapist, and I think it's true because this is how I remember it, so it's got to be true. But I remember, especially like in high school and middle school, like my objective going to school every day was not to get good grades. It was just to make it through the day without getting made fun of or doing anything embarrassing. You know, I don't know if that's what you guys experience, but
yeah. I mean, it goes back to I think the way that your parents, or my parents at least, made it feel, I had to be like a certain way, and just like I had to stand out in a good way, and not be individual in a way that's kind of eccentric, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like conflicting messages, because at home I was taught to be this way and this way, but then you go to school and like everybody who's cool and everybody who's like popular are like the dirtiest and like rotten kids. And so you go to school and you feel like you have to like be like that in order to be like liked by anybody, because if you raise your hand too much and you know too much, that you're going to get made fun of.
Right. And it's kind of like, yeah, it's like it's interesting. This is where there's a culture clash. You know, I don't want to demonize Asian culture. I love Asian culture. I still rep it. You know, I'll rep it to my dying days. But there are cultural clashes between American life and, you know, Chinese or Taiwanese life, because it's kind of like it comes from, and that's kind of ingrained from Confucian ideals, right? Of like, there's the family relationships. You have to be respectful. You don't want to speak out of turn, stuff like that.
Right.
Whereas in America, it seems like, damn, to get ahead in America, you gotta be and kind of arrogant prick, I guess. But then again, what does that mean? Like like the Asian, level of the arrogant prick is like actually like speaking out or something like that, you know. And so it seems like I know in America, it's something I'm still learning how to do is to be a little bit more ask more questions. Like, you know, I remember something my dad told me was like, James, like when I would ask him a question, he'd be like, James, go figure it out. You know, like figure it out yourself, which is good, is self-independence. But the negative of that was that I'm kind of scared of asking questions now, to be honest.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was actually one of the first things I learned about myself in therapy, was that like all my life, like, you know, going through like puberty and stuff like that, like I would never go to like my parents to like ask them questions about that stuff. So I literally like spent a lot of my life like trying to figuring things out like on my own. And I think the result of that, like I'm like the person that I am now, like I don't want to bother people. I feel like I like try not to bother people, and
And
well,
go ahead,
it's a
Dad.
very Asian thing. I mean, one of the language corner words I've used in the past is meiwaku. In Japanese, you don't want to cause trouble for other people. So basically, you have to be a little bit self-sufficient.
Yeah.
And going back to the point of like, you know, who made their opinions or somebody else's opinions matter more than our own opinion. I think in some ways it's our own way of like dealing and our own view of the world. If our kids, if we actually were super confident, if I was as confident as my kids, I wouldn't care about bringing rice balls to school for lunch in first grade or second grade, but I cared. So I think a lot of it has to be the cultural part, like making you feel not good enough in general. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
You asked who actually gave them that power. We kind of did in that way. Our parents did in a way by like making sure that you can't stick out.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay.
And the confidence.
Do you guys or let me ask you this, like, do you guys find yourself like identifying with one culture more, like the American mindset, or more like the traditional Chinese like mindset?
Dan, you want to take that?
Yeah. I mean, I am totally Chinese, and I didn't really like we've talked about it before, but I felt more Chinese once I started finding the cool things about, Chinese culture.
Yeah, yeah.
And once I got one thing, then everything else started becoming cooler and cooler and cooler.
That one thing was kung fu, right?
That one thing was kung fu, because like it was indisputable. And then I, brought out the confidence in me that, Chinese people are awesome because they made this system that's lasted for hundreds of years that totally worked, and everyone wants to learn it, or everyone did want to learn it at one point.
Yeah. I would.
So.
Yeah, I agree. I think one thing for me was watching Edward Yang film in high school, called a 1 and 2 EE, and I saw that. I was like, what the fuck? There's like a whole Taiwanese family on screen. Like I put in, I think it was a VHS tape. I saw it on the way out leaving the video store where I used to get pornos, and like I was like, whoa, this is like what's this cover about? It was like just an Asian kid with a camera or something, right? And I just picked it up on a whim and I watched it. I was like blown away, like seeing Asian faces and like and I think from that point, and also watching like Evangelion or anime, it's something I connected with personally, and I don't know necessarily if I had to be Asian to connect with those things. I think if I was another race, I would have connected with those things. But being Asian and seeing that this awesome stuff was coming out of Asia, I was just like, damn, this is fucking awesome. Yeah. I mean, did you ever come with it? Oh, sorry, what were you gonna say, Dan?
What about you, Jeff? I mean,
yeah,
do you
Jeff.
feel
I was gonna say, yeah.
I'm a confused person. I find myself like going back and forth a lot. Like I definitely think I do have like a very American mindset, and like I believe in like, like individuality and stuff like that more over like the collective good. I think, see, this is part of my confusion, but it's kind of weird, but I am like very proud of like a lot of certain aspects of like Chinese culture. Like when I go to like San Gabriel Valley and stuff, like I don't connect with like a lot of these like new Chinese immigrants who are like wealthier and stuff like that. But when I step into a Samwoo and stuff like that, and the wait staff and the cooks and stuff like that, I guess maybe from growing up in a Chinese restaurant and cooking with my uncle, like I immediately like feel at home, like right there, And also like, I don't know about you guys. Did you guys grow up with like watching Chinese movies or Asian movies at all?
Here
like, kung fu movies.
Yeah. I watched. My grandma used to watch like some Japanese channels and stuff on like Asian channels on TV.
Yeah, because like it's kind of weird because like with Crazy Rich Asians it came out last year. Like a lot of people were talking about like representation and stuff like that. I mean, I could be wrong or whatever, but like that's something like I never missed, in my opinion, or not in my opinion. I feel like I never missed out on, because like when I was 3-4 years old growing up with my grandparents, like I was watching Bruce Lee movies with them. I was watching Jackie Chan. I mean, I was watching like A Better Tomorrow when I was like 6 years old.
Violence,
but like those people were all like cool to me. Like Bruce Lee was like, I wanted to be like Bruce Lee. I wanted to be like Chow Yun-fat. I wanted to be like Tony Leung and stuff like that. And I quickly found out that I wasn't. I was more of like a shy, sensitive kid and who didn't want to fight anybody. But like that was something like and then like I've always, and then that transitioned to like Stephen Chow movies, which like, oh, okay, like we can be funny too. And then that transitioned to college when I discovered Japanese film, and specifically Koreeda and Ozu. I was like, oh, we can, like Asians can be delicate and sensitive also. So I've never, like, granted these aren't Asian Americans,
sure,
but I've never felt like I've been devoid of like Asian role models.
Yeah, but like Asian role models from Asia though, right? Yeah.
Right.
I guess Bruce Lee is kind of mixed, but yeah, go ahead.
Chinese American. I think for me personally, you just kind of pick the best of what you want. You like, I'm raising my kids definitely not the way I was raised, and it's because my wife is like very cognizant of those things, that I don't do the Chinese guilt thing and make them feel bad, or try to avoid doing that.
Right.
Because one thing I want to do is I want to make sure that they keep that confidence and they have that sort of entitlement. You know, they should feel like they deserve things in a certain way, not like completely entitled, but at least confident enough to ask for things.
Yeah,
and not be afraid to ask for things.
And one thing I noticed is like one thing one of a guy do Tai Chi push hands with is like principles are principles. No matter what, so let's use martial arts as an analogy. No matter what martial art you do, they're based on body mechanics, right? Or whatever sport you do, it's based on like movement and
right.
You know. So basically, okay, sure, you can learn Tai Chi to protect yourself, but you could also learn karate. You can learn Muay Thai. You can learn judo, jiu-jitsu, but they're all different ways. They're all using the body and different ways of moving the body. So it's kind of like these cultures, American culture or Taiwanese culture, or Chinese culture, or Taiwanese culture. They're based on, you know, thousands and thousands. You know, I guess America is kind of newer, but China is based on thousands of years of history. But that was at that time, and so I guess I think to evolve or to adapt those ideas to how you're living in whatever situation you're living now, and that's, I don't know how to do that, but like I think maybe that's kind of what you're saying, Dan, right? Like you're kind of adapting, or you're basically like Bruce Lee said, you discard what you don't need and you take what is useful.
What works?
Yeah, what works? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're coming up to that time. One thing I just want to say about my personal opinion on the podcast, the Invisibilia one, was I thought
we totally didn't. We totally like brushed through that really
No,
quickly.
that's fine. Whatever. One thing I wanted to touch on was two different stories, C's story and L's story. C is the male character in that podcast, and he's dealing with that self-shame. And I think something that I've noticed, with the Asian American male experience and the Asian American female experience are different. Let's just be honest. There's similarities, obviously, because we're all, there's this feeling of otherness sometimes, that feeling of maybe shame about our culture. But it seems that as far as especially when it comes to dating, there is a very big divide, because Asian women statistically are seen as most desirable in the online dating surveys, and you can, and like Jeff mentioned, you can see this in reality. You can see that in the couples, and you can see that like walking on the street. And yeah, you're right. I don't want to feel resentful about that. I don't want to feel angry at the woman for that. But I'm not going to say it doesn't affect me. When I see that, it affects me.
But that's a momentary thing, though, right? Like, or do you think there's like truth behind?
I think it's also where I'm at in my life right now.
Yeah. Because
I've been single for so long, is that the reactive mind, the reactive state is resentment, which it shouldn't be. I'm trying to move past that. I'm aware of it, which is the first step, right? But I'm still trying to figure out, like, trying to get past that. Oh, she's a white worshiping bitch, like I'm not gonna lie, that's a thought that comes to my head. Are the thoughts me? No, like that's what Eckhart Tolle says. Like my thoughts are not me, right? My thoughts are these things that spun up from whatever, like my experience with life. So when I listen to that podcast and the stories, there is a certain level of resentment I have. One being is that Elle, she's obviously sounds like she's attractive Asian female, and she's very privileged. She has the opportunity and the ability to fuck the rainbow.
Right.
Asian men, we can do that, but it's gonna take a lot more effort, and we gotta be a lot better looking.
Right.
And see his story about how he fucking like fucked up his nose because he wanted to look more white or something, and I'm like, okay, I'm so lucky that I grew up in a majority Asian area, so luckily I didn't have that kind of body dysmorphia, but I kind of get where he's coming from now. Like, it's weird. I came from a majority Asian area in the Bay Area, and then I come here to LA, which is still very strongly Asian, right? But it seems that the hierarchy is a little bit more delineated. I don't know about you guys, but like it just feels like yeah, the city is kind of a lonely city, something you talked about, and also seems like your self-worth or your value is about, how, depending on what industry you are, how much you make, and also, partially how good looking you are and what race you are, which are, and it's as someone who feels lonely or feels sad sometimes, it's painful.
Right.
It's very painful.
I totally understand that. I think I'm at a place where I'm more at peace with that thought. Like I've accepted that that's my reality, and that's just basically what I have to live with, and I don't really feel sorry for myself anymore, and I definitely don't blame women. In fact, it'd be interesting if a woman came on here someday to like talk about this stuff, because I'd love to hear what they would say about it.
Yeah.
But I think it's actually kind of my approach to like creating characters now too. Like you have all these strong feelings that are emanating from yourself, right, about this topic, and I have very strong feelings about things that happen in my life too. But like when you create characters, you really have to like find what the other person is feeling too. You can't make a one-sided movie that like creates one point of view. Like to create conflict and stuff like that, you really have to dig deep and like figure out what other people are doing, and that sense of empathy. And I think that's been like my approach to filmmaking, and I think in a sense that's like taught me how to like deal with like life situations too.
Yeah.
And therapy helps.
Therapy helps. Yeah. There's a takeaway from this podcast. Therapy helps. And hopefully you find the right therapist. Not all therapists are equal. Find something that fits you.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure. I don't know, Dan. Do you have any feelings about that?
Well, I mean, it's just, it goes with everything, right? I probably felt more resentful when I was younger because I wasn't like confident in myself, and preference is preference. It's like a visceral thing sometimes.
Right.
I prefer vanilla more than chocolate, something, ice cream, and I prefer, Coke over Pepsi. Doesn't matter. It's everyone's own personal things.
Yeah.
How old are you, James, if I may ask?
I'm 34. I'm 35 this year. Yeah.
Got it. I'll say this too. I like Dan just brought up something that made me think about when I was in college, like in my 20s, like most of my 20s, I was an angry person. I was like a lot of it was like me being away from home for the first time and being really scared, and that was my way of dealing with it. But
was
like,
college in the same area or different?
It was in Delaware, which was only like an hour, 40 minutes away from where my parents lived.
Yeah.
But still, like I was there by myself, and actually that was the first time being in Delaware. It was the first time I didn't experience diversity, and I thought it'd be fine, and it turned out I had like the opposite reaction. All my friends first 3 years were all African American, so I rolled with them, and I'm not gonna lie, like I was a maniac like during those years. Like I probably said a lot of like really stupid things, a lot of like things out of like anger and stuff like that.
Sure, yeah.
So if anybody who encountered me during that time is listening, I'm really sorry.
Jeff, sorry guys.
But yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, yeah, as I've gotten older and I've had more time to like reflect on the world and myself, like, yeah, I've definitely like chilled out a lot more and become more at peace with things.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, that's good. Yeah.
I will say too. Oh no, go ahead, Dan.
No, go ahead, Jeff.
I was gonna say, I listened to one of your previous podcasts where you talked about how like creativity like is at your peak in your like 20s and 30s and stuff like that. I will say this: if I started, like, I'm 37, I'd say like I really didn't start making stuff until I was like 30. Like I started making stuff like around 25, 26, but I really didn't like ramp it up until I was like 30. And I'll say this: like if I started way earlier, I'd be making way different things. Like I remember like early on, like the stuff I was inspired by was like Tarantino and like very like flashy and like visual type stuff. And now like I'm into like Coriedo Ozu and like Mike Lee and like, yeah. So it's kind of.
So it's kind of like you can still be creative at any stage of your life. It'll just be that you produce different things at each stage of your life. Yeah.
I'm not sure. I hope I didn't reach my creative phase.
No, you haven't. No.
But
Yeah.
I would say like the life experience that I've had through this time up until now, it's really shaped what I've done. And it's the time that I've had to reflect on my life. It's helped me shape the kind of stuff that I do now.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, one last thing I was going to say is that I do feel that we do need more platforms for Asian American men, to be honest, because Yowei Shaw, she's a Asian American female. She was the creator of that podcast. I props to her. Thank you for bringing that kind of issue to light. And also, but then the other major ones, like the Celeste Ng article she writes about Asian men being angry at her for talking about not wanting to date Asian men. There was two other female writers. So it seems that Asian American females, props to them for actually like bringing these kind of issues to light. But I think we need more Asian American male voices about like interracial dating or the feeling of, feelings of shame or resentment. Let's be honest. And I think part of it, and I'm going to be honest too, this is something I mentioned about when I was talking about Minding the Gap, the documentary, whereas that one thing I noticed is that, race was kind of taken out. He didn't really talk about race in his documentary, but he talked about Curie's race. And I thought, you know what, why is that? And I just feel that sometimes Asian American men especially, we edit ourselves out because it doesn't seem to appeal to, let's face it, the white dominated society. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say about that. Anything else, Dan, before we go to language corner and wrap it up?
We have to wrap it up because my wife is waiting to watch Game of Thrones.
Yes, Game of Thrones. Sunday.
I know that we got some feedback about this particular topic by somebody.
Okay, yeah,
I don't even remember it too well.
Yeah, so she says, so anyone who doesn't like to date Asian men are whitewashed? Well, it just seems to me those words... So this is what she said, okay. Well, it just seems to me those words are coming from a deep down, bitter, narcissistic Asian men, or I think she meant man, who can't handle rejection that well. That's what someone had wrote on our Instagram, yeah. So Dan, what do you want to say to that?
I mean... I don't remember even the conversation that we had regarding that. But, again, everyone has their own preferences. Everyone says, like, dumb things when they're young. And I think maybe some things were taken out of context. Or maybe we did say it. But I think overall, everyone has their own thing. Let it all lie.
We're looking at her Instagram right now. But anyways, yeah. Okay. Yeah, everyone has their own thing, but like what I said is like it's problematic if you cut out an entire race. I mean, I would say just question that. I think if anything, be self-aware and ask yourself why. If you're okay with those reasons why. Just ask yourself why. If you're okay with that preference and the reasons why, go for it,
I guess sorry, not to prolong this, but like if you guys like what would your solution be to this?
That's a long.
Yeah.
I'll keep it short. My solution is that even with me, like you said, even with the three of us, we have our own preferences, right?
Right.
So when I'm on my online dating and I'm about to swipe left on someone, like to say no to someone, I ask myself why. Mm-hmm. And if I'm okay with those reasons, I just let it go. That's one thing I'm more aware of. To be honest, I've swiped probably... I have a preference towards Asian women, I've noticed. So whenever I come of someone of another race, I actually look at that person's profile and say, wait, is it because of their race only? Or is it like, something else? Or is it because of some other reasons? Like, I don't... So that's something, I think, like what you said, is having that that awareness is the first step, and then asking yourself questions. Dan.
I think it's more about yourself, right? If you have confidence in yourself, you can just deal with whatever comes with you or comes at you, or you don't worry about other people's preferences or other people's things. You just do your thing and know that what you're doing is good for you.
Yeah.
So, and that's how I want to raise my kids.
Yeah.
That's an important thing. James, when you have kids, you're gonna like view things way differently. You are, and I just want to make sure my kids understand that what other people are doing, their thoughts, their preferences, their likes or dislikes. That's on them. That's not on you.
Right.
And
it's not,
they just have to do.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. That's the thing. I have to teach the next generation to get better about themselves and not use the Chinese guilt and make them feel bad at all and make them feel inadequate.
Yeah.
Dan, I feel like I talk too much. I feel like you should have talked more because you apparently are the wisest among
You are
us
the
here,
wisest.
and your kids are very lucky to have a dad like you.
Aw.
I don't know about that, but Jeff, what are your thoughts?
I guess I asked you guys because I really don't know.
Yeah, it's
I
tough.
guess like in my, I can only control like what I do, and
Yeah.
I think for me the thing that I've discovered through like watching like I know movies the best, I guess. So to use like a filmmaking example, like a lot of the movies that I watch outside of like the Hollywood stuff, it's all like really gorgeous, like beautiful people, and that's what they're glamorizing. But like if you truly seek out like some of these like smaller independent films that are just like about regular people, they tend to not cast like people who embody that ideal, like what we've come to know as like beauty.
Sure.
Right. Okay, like this is an example. Like, did you guys see Roma last year?
Yeah. I watched it,
No.
but yeah.
I didn't watch
You can skip it, Dan. It's so kind of, I don't know. I thought it was a bore. Yeah, but
Okay,
anyways, yeah.
so, I love that movie, but like that the main character of Roma,
Yeah.
like not a supermodel or anything like that, regular looking person, but I literally walked away from that movie like finding the beauty in that person and people like that, and I think that's what films like that have helped me through, like judging the true beauty of a person as opposed to like judging them by like society standards of beauty.
Question, would you date her?
Totally.
Wow. Okay. See, movies, the power of movies. So prior to that
All right.
movie, you wouldn't really...
What's her Yalitza? I mean, she.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it opened my mind to like the true beauty of like everyday people who are like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like my sister's example, how she thought Takeshi Kanishiro is hot.
Yeah.
Like that guy's a really good looking guy. But like if things existed out there more that showed like regular people and what our value as human beings are aside from what we look like, maybe hearts and minds can change. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
All right. Well, let's thank you, Jeff. Let's wrap it up with some language corner, and so though I'll start. I have one prepped already. One thing, something we talked about in the podcast was kind of like, maybe women that have blacklisted, certain races of men for dating or something. So, this internet slang is called la hei. La hei is la means to pull and hei means black. So it's actually a short form for 拉到黑名单. 拉到黑名单 means basically to pull onto put onto the blacklist. So then they shorten that to la hei, which means pull black, which means to blacklist somebody. So la hei is my language corner for today, and I hope. And one thing I want to add is that hopefully you don't blacklist the entire race. Give a race a chance, for dating, and that goes for men and women. Yeah. Anyways, Dan or Jeff or yeah.
Jeff, do you want to go first?
I wasn't expecting this, so the first thing that I thought of
It's okay
is
if you
something. The first thing I thought of is something that I would not recommend anybody to live by, but I'll just say it because. So this is an example of something that I grew like. This is something my grandparents told me all the time. I don't know what the first part means. I know what the second part means. But this was something I struggled with my whole life because I thought I was supposed to live this way. But I remember as a young kid, like 2-3-year-old, when I would cry, my grandparents would say in Mandarin, I hope I'm saying this right, but it's like, 男子汉大丈夫流血不流泪. I know the second part is men like shed blood, not tears.
Oh.
Which I'm sure, Dan, you've never told your kids that.
No.
But, I don't know what the first part means.
男子汉 means like a gentleman or like a good boy, I guess. Yeah, a good man.
What does 大丈夫 mean?
大丈夫 means like older, like a grown-up man.
Yeah.
So 男子汉, like 男子汉 is like kind of like a younger boy, I want to say,
Yeah.
and then 大丈夫 is like so kind of like boys to men. You know,
Okay.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so boys to men shed blood, not tears.
Oh.
Which it's something I like tried to abide by when I was a kid, but I found a hard time doing it. So
That's a whole nother podcast. Asian
Yeah.
Asian masculinity. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's
I'm a big crier even to this day. So
Hey man, I cry too. Man. Shit.
all right, Dan.
Damn.
もったいない もったいない means what a waste.
もったいない
It's not, yeah, it's not relevant to this podcast, but もったいない is it's wasteful.
I guess it's if I had to make a connection, I think it's wasteful maybe to overthink some things too much. I guess maybe
Yeah.
and being okay with yourself.
I guess don't waste time on things that doesn't matter to you.
もったいない Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, hopefully your wife is not too angry. Game of Thrones is waiting.
Yeah, tell her so.
Yeah,
we're
she's
sorry.
asking. She just texted me.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Hey, we love
Thanks,
you guys.
Jeff.
All right. Yeah, thank you
Think
for
about
having me.
therapy and take care. Bye.
Bye.